I'll do it like I did the last time, record it, but this time I'm just going to kind of clip highlights. All right, so we're on chapter 3, and the first piece I highlighted here is page 36. And if you go right below the box, it says, creative imagination is not something reserved for the poets, the philosophers, the inventors. It enters into our every act. For imagination sets the goal picture that our automatic mechanism works on. We act or fail to act not because of will, and is so commonly believed, but because of imagination. So this was something that we were talking about if you guys managed to get into one of the previous chats we had just recently. That will to create action in yourself is completely dependent on just how bad you want your goal, which also stems from just how vividly you imagined what you want to be. Like that's how you build that importance deep in your mind and give it the priority that would give you the energy to do what it is you're trying to do, even when difficult things show up in obstacles and the pressures of life, etc. It's just the thing that we're reiterating all the time. People who succeed in their goals do so because of their imaginations, mostly. It's not sheer fucking will. Like, yes, some people do have that insane will to keep going, but often what's not talked about is the fact that what they say when they have sheer will is like that person, while doing a task, while chasing a goal, is off on another planet. They're essentially daydreaming what success looks like for the activity they're chasing. Like these guys that are running ultra marathons don't see themselves in the moment running the ultra marathon. Their minds are completely gone somewhere else as they're like slogging it. Their legs are breaking down. They're struggling to take another step. They're not there present in the moment. They're in their minds imagining crossing the finish line, imagining, the feeling of winning, imagining hard times, imagining like all those dark events in your life. Like that's what's powering him through. And that's what a lot of this book is going to get into right now. I think chapter 3 and 4 is about a lot of this. And I have another thing marked right under there. It keeps going. A human being always acts and feels and performs in accordance with what he imagines to be true. And he's got it italicized for imagining and true about himself and his environment. This is a basic and fundamental law of the mind. It is the way we are built. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between an imagined experience and a real experience. In either case, it reacts automatically to information that you give it from your forebrain. Your nervous system reacts appropriately to what you think or imagine to be true. So I can't remember if it was in the first 2 chapters or he covers this later, but he tells the story of the bear walking down the trail. If you guys remember that or have already read that far out. Essentially, there's somebody walking down a trail. I think he may go into it here. I might not want to spoil it, but let's just spoil it for a little bit. You're walking down a trail. Some leaves are rustling. You see a dark shadow. Immediately, your mind imagines it's a bear. And then through your imagination, fight or flight, kicks in. And adrenaline starts to pump. Your muscles are being flooded with oxygen and fresh red blood cells. And you're already undergoing physiological changes due to an imagination. Now you take a double take. You check those leaves. It just ends up being the wind. And what ends up happening is now you calm down. You now see the reality that was just leaves. And now because the imagined changed, your perception changed, now you're returning to a state of normal. That is an insanely powerful thing to actually think about. Imagine that you can, on command, through imagination, through visualization, enact something as powerful as a physical response like fight or flight. Now imagine what else thoughts can be capable of doing. Like you can actually think yourself sick. You can actually think yourself into action. You can actually think yourself into inaction. You can think yourself into a depression. You can think yourself into happiness. A lot of people that are not clinically severely depressed, chemical imbalance, this and that, whatever they want to call it, man. Just people going through normal transient depression. They mostly do it to themselves. It's mostly you're thinking about how your situation sucks, which is causing you to hate your current situation, which is causing you to have more fear, more dread, more hopelessness, which puts you in a nasty feedback loop that studies have already shown the best way to cure someone with depression is like hours upon hours of rigorous exercise every day for like a week, for like 10 days, severely diminishes depression because all they had to do is up and about, walk around, do something difficult, open up their brain to physical stimuli and get their minds, that juice flowing again so that, everything around them isn't so numb. So we can perceive ourselves to be depressed and we become depressed. If we perceive ourselves to be happy, we will be happy. Oftentimes it comes down to a choice, which is, what we're trying to do is master the programming in our mind because our thoughts run away from us a lot of the times. We weren't taught in school or by our parents how to master thought. Now that's an insane thing to say. We're taught how to do stupid shit like geometry that doesn't affect our, day-to-day lives, or advanced calculus or some shit like that. But we're not taught one of the most important fundamental human experiences of mastering the subconscious or trains of thought or styles of thought, how to problem solve day-to-day life and taking mastery over something that we have to live with every single day. Every day we fight this thing. The moment we wake up, we fight it. We fight it when we got to hit that alarm button. It's that the lizard brain in you. It's like, 5 more minutes. I'm not ready to go into work. It's fucking cold. I don't want to get up. I don't feel like doing it. Like already your train of thought has poisoned the start of your day. And then immediately it could hit you with, I feel tired. I don't think I slept well. I don't think I slept well now makes me feel tired, which makes me behave as if I'm tired. And you see how this train wreck happens in people. This is probably one of the most fundamental things. This is why the Stoics had everything right. Way back then, they just sat around and fucking thought about life and everything, man. And that's why Stoicism was so powerful. It taught a man to manage his style of thinking, manage his emotions, manage all the externalities in their life, because everything around you is simply the way you perceive it to be and how you react to it. You choose a lot of your feelings and emotions. Okay. And then I go over to, excuse me, I'll be coughing a lot, guys. Forgive me. Page 39. About halfway or somewhere in the middle, it says, you act and feel not according to what things are really like, according to the image your mind holds of what they're like. You have certain mental images of yourself, your world, and the people around you, and you behave as though these images were the truth, the reality, rather than the things they represent. And then it continues to go, let us suppose, for example, here it is. This is why I was thinking about it, that the man on the trail had not met a real bear, but a movie actor dressed in a bear costume. If he thought and imagined that the actor to be a bear, his emotional nervous reactions would have been exactly the same. Or let us suppose that he met a large shaggy dog, which his fear-ridden imagination mistook for a bear. Again, he would react automatically to what he believed to be true concerning himself and his environment. If our ideas and mental images concerning ourselves are distorted or unrealistic, then our reaction to our environment will likewise be inappropriate. Why not imagine yourself successful? He asks. So it says, realizing that our actions, feelings, and behaviors are the result of our own images and beliefs gives us the lever that psychology has always needed for changing personality. It opens a new psychological door to gaining skill, success, and happiness. Mental pictures offer us an opportunity to practice new traits and attitudes, which otherwise we could not do. This is possible because, again, your nervous system cannot tell the difference between an actual experience and one that is vividly imagined. So do you see why I stress so much about it's not just imagining? The vivid part is extremely important. It has to be so realistic that it's hard to discern from reality or not. You almost trick yourself into thinking it's real, right? Almost deluding yourself. That's how you have to be. It has to be, you have to imagine the buttons on your suit down to the pinstripe, down to how tanned your skin, like everything, man. You really have to sit down, and that's probably our version of meditating in the modern world today, because we're not going to sit. I always like to quote the monk in the cave for 20 years to master this shit. But we all have an imagination. We can all take time and really vividly imagine what one day looks like when we are the perfect version of ourselves. If you can imagine that so detailed, you can start to actually get there step by step every single day. That's the key. I just literally had someone today ask me again, especially after that video about the 40-year-old, is it too late? Is how do I lose weight? The guy DM'd me a whole paragraph about his life struggles, and then he goes, I've been wanting to lose weight. What do I do? And my response immediately was wanting to just say it's called Google, because that's about as stupid as an answer, as stupid as his question is, like matches the stupidity. How do I lose weight? Yeah, it's called Google, bro. He hasn't done the imagination. He hasn't visualized himself and how he should look. He has no idea what he should weigh at, a picture of the body he would like to, nothing. It's just, I'd like to lose some weight. When? How long? What kinds of food do you like? What don't you like? Are you allergic? Nothing. It's just the most least invested question you could possibly ask for somebody that's guaranteed to not do shit. You know, it's almost like a psychological pat on the back. You know, these people are so used to not doing shit that simply asking a question like, I'd like to lose weight is their version of effort. You know, it's like, oh, great. You know, I tried that one time I was looking into losing weight, but it's just it seems so difficult. It's hard to imagine, but there are really people on such a lowly level that to them asking is good enough effort. It's incredible, the state of humanity today. If we picture ourselves performing in a certain manner, it is nearly the same as the actual performance. Mental practice helps to make perfect. In a controlled experiment, psychologist R.A. Vandal proved that mental practice in throwing darts at a target, wherein the person sits for a period each day in front of the target and imagines throwing darts at it, improves aim as much as actually throwing darts. Research Quarterly reported an experiment on the effects of mental practice on improving skill in sinking basketball free throws. One group of students that practiced throwing the ball every day for 20 days was scored on the first and last days. A second group was scored on the first and last days but engaged in no sort of practice in between. A third group was scored on the first day, then spent 20 minutes a day imagining that they were throwing the ball in the hoop. When they missed, they would imagine that they corrected their aim accordingly. The first group, which practiced 20 minutes every day, improved in scoring 24%. The second group, which had no sort of practice, showed no improvement. The third group, which practiced in their imagination, improved in scoring 23%. This was one of the portions in this book that blew my mind away about the power of the mind. The fact that you have three groups of people. The first group practices physically every single day. And then the third group practices mentally only. And the improvement difference between them was 1%. Is insane to me. How is this not more talked about? Imagine the possibilities here with this information that we just got. Where could you take your life? What do you think you could possibly achieve? How much further, how much more proficient can you get at something if you begin to do a whole other half of a type of training? The stuff that separates the winners from the losers, the champions from everybody else. Imagine you're that guy practicing for a basketball game, because this is just the example they use. But the moment you're off the court, you're done practicing, that's it. It's out of your mind. You're chilling with family. You're hanging out with friends. You're grabbing a beer. You're doing whatever the fuck. Versus that guy that after practice is over, he's imagining playing a game against the next team. He's imagining taking that game-winning shot. He's imagining a ton of scenarios. He's imagining dribbling the ball. If that improvement is so close, imagine the amount of practice time advantage you get versus the guy that just mentally checks out when it's done, when it's time to check out like that. Can you just comprehend this massive difference, this potential? Now, this could be applied to everything in life, man, from learning a new skill, from starting a business, from trying to close a sale. Like the most important for salesmen here, if anybody is trying to sell something, imagining yourself talking with clients, imagining yourself, like, for example, I did remodeling and construction, walking around a house, pitching sales, pointing stuff out. Pretend you're doing a real sale in whatever avenue you're selling. Pretend the customer is going to ask you some hard-hitting questions that you may not be prepared for. The most curveball, questions they could possibly have. And just have your answer ready. Prepare for it. Imagine it's real. By the time you get to an actual person and you're trying to close a sale, you're going to sound like a complete professional. You're not going to need to go through 50, 100 clients to get it. How do I say, to be proficient enough and a good enough salesman, oh yeah, that guy's been here for a year. He's talked to so many people. It's so relaxed for him. It's like common sense. He could sell salt to a snail. It's so easy because he's talked to so many people. Yeah, that's the physical practice. But then you could also imagine yourself doing all this shit, cut the time down in half. And probably that guy did that too. That's why he got so good at what he does. But this is what you have to do in any avenue you're pursuing in life, including losing weight, including gaining weight, and everything. Everything requires this, because the difference from physically doing it to only doing it mentally is apparently, in most cases, a few percentage points of improvement, which means it's a compounding effect. I would wonder if they had a fourth group where they could somehow get people that were disciplined enough to actually physically practice, but also take time to mentally practice every single day and just see the difference between them. It's crazy to think, how does the brain work? On a fundamental level, it's just electrical signals, right? So if we could manipulate the electrical signals by our thoughts because can't differentiate between like something imagined, like a dream, versus something like real in the physical world you see with your eyeballs, then why wouldn't the brain rewire itself to make you better at shooting a basketball if you just thought about shooting basketballs? It's the same exact electrical impulses. Same thing with playing piano. You know, he has other examples where a kid taught himself piano and he was told to practice in his mind only, as if he was practicing a song. And then when he got on the piano, he played it as if he physically practiced. It's the same concept. Your brain is just lighting up in certain patterns and building neural connections in the same manner it would if you did something physically. And this is nothing, it sucks that we weren't taught this because holy shit, dude, can you imagine if you were taught how to master a technique like this type of mental technique when you approached anything in life, how much easier things would be. Cybernetics regards the human brain, nervous system, and muscular system as a highly complex servo mechanism. That's an automatic goal-seeking machine that steers its way to a target or goal by the use of feedback data and stored information, automatically correcting course when necessary. As stated earlier, this concept does not mean that you are a machine, but that your physical brain and body functions as a machine that you operate. This automatic creative mechanism within you can operate in only one way. It must have a target to shoot at. As Alex Morrison said, you must first clearly see a thing in your mind before you can do it. When you do see a thing clearly in your mind, the creative success mechanism within you takes over and does the job much better than you could do it by conscious effort or willpower. And that's huge. There's a bunch of people just trying to brute force success in their life by this so-called conscious effort / willpower. They don't have that creative imagination needed to place themselves there. And so these are the people that usually will complain about, say, burnout or being unhappy chasing something and then eventually failing if the goal becomes too difficult or the journey is too long and it just takes too much out of them because they can't, that visualization is so key to prep you for the journey. Imagine you're doing something that you don't even want to do, like your parents want you to become a doctor and you're slugging it out through med school, or you're trying to get into med school and you're trying to study and the late night and all this stuff and you're struggling, versus that kid who dreams of being a doctor, dreams every day of putting that white coat on, dreams of treating patients and how he's talking to them, doing the surgeries. Like, who do you think's going to have, we'll call it motivation. You know, we can call it willpower. It goes by different names, but the one that's visualizing this vividly has that infinite energy to chase this goal and does so automatically. For him, studying isn't a chore. It's simply part of the process of becoming what his dream is. To the other one, he's just fulfilling someone else's dream, someone else's vision. Yet it's not congruent with the vision of himself, what he wants for his life. And this is another trap that a lot of people are currently experiencing, is they're living other people's dreams or what society says you should be doing. And again, that's not congruent with your self-image. Therefore, it makes it hard to pursue that in the long term. And hence why so many people give up today. They have no identity of themselves. They don't know what they want. And the things they're pursuing doesn't bring them any, pride, joy, fulfillment in any manner. Instead of trying hard by conscious effort to do the thing with iron-jawed willpower, and all while worrying and picturing yourself all the things that are likely to go wrong, you simply relax the strain. Stop trying to do it by strain and effort. Picture yourself the target you really want to hit and let your creative success mechanism take over. Thus, mentally picturing the desired end result literally forces you to use positive thinking. You're not relieved thereafter from effort and work, but your efforts are used to carry you forward toward your goal, rather than in the futile mental conflict that results when you want and try to do one thing, but picture to yourself something else. So that's what I was alluding to earlier about where your internal image of what your goals are isn't congruent to the actions that you're taking, because obviously most of the time we're doing what our parents want us to do, what our teachers expect us to do, what society or work expects us to do. That's where you get into like the soul crushing, that quote of soul crushing job, soul crushing amount of classes you're taking at school, homework, all. It's soul crushing because it doesn't align with deep in your soul what you're picturing your life to be like, what you're imagining, what you're truly as passionate, I would say, about pursuing in this world. And then there's the whole, like, what is passion? How do I become passionate about something? That's a whole nother can of worms. We'll get into that with other books. It says this same creative mechanism within you can help you achieve your best possible self. If you'll form a picture in your imagination of the self you want to be and see yourself in the new role, this is a necessary condition per personality transformation, regardless of the method of therapy used. Somehow, before a person can change, he must see himself in the new role. And that's one of the gold nuggets right there. No amount of affirmations, positive thinking, brute force like will, effort, and discipline, and none of this shit matters until you address the fundamental picture that allows all those other things to come into play later. You have to see yourself first as this new person, this new transformation of who you want to become. Without it, you're basically guaranteed to fail. And that's what's crazy about all this. Because if you look in social media, we're all told to like, think positive, look at the bright side, positive affirmations to yourself. All this shit that would work if it was aligned with your self-image. People aren't living the lives for which they see themselves as, unfortunately. And what we see ourselves in this manner today is mostly negative. Oh, I'm ugly. Oh, I don't know how to talk to women. Oh, I this, that, and the other, right? And then you start to act out some of these negativities, which again turns into a feedback loop of positive confirmation because you may start acting weird talking to other people. Now you're saying like you're asocial or awkward person in general. And then it just becomes worse and worse and worse. Somebody may make a comment. It bruises your quote ego. It just verifies to your self-image that you are that thing. Again, confirmation bias, which is fed by that nasty feedback loop of you actually behaving that way unconsciously. Because, you know, you walk into a room and maybe you got big ears, and the first thing you try to do is like stand in a certain way, look in a certain direction to just hide your big ears because you think this angle or that or whatever the fuck, you know, and you notice these weird quirks in people and they make a big deal out of it more than you ever would. For example, you're dating a chick, maybe she has like a mole. She's super self-conscious about it. You thought it was cute. You didn't even pay attention. You didn't even see the fucking mole until they bring it up. They highlight their own problems. You know, a lot of people do that. They'll highlight their issues to you because that's all that's in their mind. Dude, that's the self-image, and it comes out through the subconscious out into the real world. Now you start noticing that shit. Now because you started noticing, they noticed that you noticed, which causes that feedback loop. So dumb that it works this way. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you like episodes like this and want to be a part of conversations like this, join us in the private community. Links in the description. We do this kind of mental work / book readings once a week. I've clipped this episode to be just a smidgen of what we talk about during the entire call, as well as having conversations about what I'm reading in between. And we'd love to have you be a part of the conversation and see what kind of insights you could give everybody or things you could learn yourself. These type of events happen every Thursday. And then we have Mondays where we do our power planning and we sit down and chat about the week ahead, how we're getting after it, just getting our mind right for what's to come. If you feel like you want something more out of life, if you feel like something needs to change or you're not content with where you're at and you know you're capable of more, I do suggest joining a community like this. Annie, it doesn't have to be mine, but find a group of guys that you could depend on, that could mentor you in various things, a community that will help keep you accountable, people that are on the same journey as you and learning as they go. It's extremely powerful for a man to have this kind of social network. So if you're ready, we'll see you there. Catch you guys on the next one.